Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are looking into a body of work that, well, it came out of one of the darkest times imaginable, but it offers this incredibly resilient, almost optimistic view of human nature.
We're talking about Viktor Frankl, professor of neurology and psychiatry, founder of Logotherapy, or existential analysis, the third Viennese school of psychotherapy.
And his background is just essential to understanding this. He wasn't just theorizing in an ivory tower.
No, not at all. His insights on freedom, meaning they were forged during 3 years at Nazi concentration camps, Auschwitz, Dachau. He lived through the absolute extreme of human suffering.
Yeah, and you see that reflected in the weight of his ideas. We found sources quoting Sir Cyril Burt, who was president of the British Psychological Society.
Right. Burt called Frankl's work one of the most significant contributions since, the big three, Freud, Adler, and Jung.
Which perfectly sets up our mission for you today. We're going to unpack Frankl's really radical shift away from psychology's traditional focus on, say, drives and pleasure.
Towards something else entirely. Yeah. Towards this profound, often unconscious human drive he called the will to meaning.
And we'll explore why his approach is actually getting a ton of empirical backing today, which is fascinating in itself. Okay, so let's place Frankl. The sources give us this great framework using the Viennese poet Arthur Schnitzler's 3 virtues: objectivity, courage, and responsibility, to sort of map the Viennese schools.
It's a really neat way to see how Frankl positioned himself relative to the others. You start with Freud. Freudian psychoanalysis maps onto objectivity.
Right. Freud got massive credit for just daring to look into the human psyche, the sphinx, as it were, with a kind of scientific coldness, at focusing on instincts, libido.
Psychology, but maybe with the human element slightly sidelined by the focus on drives.
So Frankl saw a real problem there, didn't he? Not just a disagreement, but a sort of fundamental flaw. He thought it was too mechanistic.
Exactly. Overly mechanistic, and he felt it actually damaged the idea of the person as a whole. His critique really zeroes in on 2 things: atomism and energism.
Okay, break those down. Atomism.
Atomism is seeing the psyche as just bits and pieces, separate drives clashing, like parts in a machine. Frankl argued this, and atomizes. It destroys the wholeness of the person.
So Freud's looking at the engine parts, maybe, instead of the driver in the journey.
That's a great way to put it. And energism, the second point, is this idea that the ego, your conscious self, is just pushed around by these drives. A plaything, he called it.
Like Freud's own admission that the ego is not the master in its own house.
Precisely. Frankl felt that if you take away that wholeness, that agency, you're stripping away human dignity and responsibility itself.
Okay, so Freud's objectivity focused on drives. What about Alfred Adler? Where did he fit in Schnitzler's virtues?
Adler aligns perfectly with courage. Adlerian therapy was really about encouraging the patient, helping them overcome those deep feelings of inferiority. Courage was the tool.
Right, encouraging them to face challenges.
Yes, to find the courage to overcome that feeling of weakness.
Which brings us then to Frankl's logotherapy, his existential analysis. That has to be responsibility.
It is. Logotherapy sees human existence, fundamentally, as being responsible. And Frankl points out this isn't just a nice idea. The word existence itself originally implied being challenged, being called upon to respond.
So it's not just about inner drives pushing us.
No, it's about being pulled by meanings out there in the world that are waiting for us to fulfill them. And that pulls us right into the core concept, the will to meaning. Logotherapy fundamentally rejects the idea that we're primarily motivated by seeking inner balance, homeostasis, or just satisfying needs.
Okay, so wait. We aren't just complex animals trying to feel comfortable or avoid pain. If it's not about getting back to equilibrium, what is driving us?
Frankl says we're primarily driven by something outside ourselves, a cause to serve, maybe a piece of work to create, or a person to love. He termed this self-transcendence.
Transcending the self, focusing outward.
Exactly. And here's the kicker. Happiness, pleasure, they aren't the goal. They're just side effects. They happen incidentally when you're engaged in pursuing that external meaning.
Huh. That flies completely in the face of, well, modern consumer culture, doesn't it? Which screams that happiness is the goal, and buying this or achieving that will get you there.
It does. And that confusion between the means and the actual meaning is why that Snoopy cartoon example in the sources is so perfect.
Oh, right. Snoopy's moping about meaninglessness.
Yeah, Charlie Brown brings him dog food, and Snoopy goes, meaning?
It's funny because it shows exactly how we mix up the means like food or pleasure or money with genuine meaning.
If pleasure itself is the goal, you're kind of doomed to miss it because it depends on something else happening first.
You got it. And when that external meaning disappears, or we can't find it, that's when we fall into what Frankl called the existential vacuum.
Where does that emptiness come from in modern life, according to him?
Well, think about it. Unlike an animal, we don't have instincts telling us exactly what we must do to survive and function.
And unlike people in past eras, we don't necessarily have strong traditions or universally accepted values telling us what we should do. Right. That leaves this void, a gap in guidance. And lacking that internal compass or external map, what do people do?
To default, right.
To conformism, just doing what everyone else seems to be doing, following the crowd. Or totalitarianism, doing what powerful others tell them to do, seeking direction from some external authority.
And the sources show this isn't just philosophical hand-wringing. The data on the cost of this vacuum is pretty stark. It proves this will to meaning is like a fundamental need.
Oh, absolutely. The statistics are compelling. Studies consistently show a strong link, an inverse one, between having a sense of purpose and things like substance abuse. Less meaning, more drug or alcohol problems.
That makes sense.
And a lack of meaning is a significant predictor for all sorts of things. Poor mental health generally, low self-worth, even suicidal thoughts. Robert J. Lifton's observation is just chilling.
What was that?
He noted that men are most apt to kill when they feel overcome by meaninglessness. The loss of meaning can become literally deadly.
Wow. Okay, that's heavy. So, if traditional psychology, the kind Frankl critiqued as mechanistic, ignores this spiritual meaning-seeking core, could it actually cause problems? Is that the iatrogenic neurosis thing?
Yes, precisely. And there's this powerful anecdote in the sources that illustrates the danger perfectly. It's about an assistant psychologist. He kept finding himself disagreeing with his psychoanalytic supervisors on, ethical grounds.
Yeah.
It was genuine, authentic disagreement stemming from his own values, his sense of responsibility.
His conscience, maybe.
Exactly, his conscience. But he was afraid of losing his job, so he just kept quiet. Suppressed it.
Then
he started having severe anxiety attacks. And because his supervisors were operating within that traditional Freudian framework.
They tried to analyze it away, look for childhood trauma or something.
They did. They pathologized his moral struggle. They called it transference anxiety, tried to trace it back to hidden conflicts. They basically interpreted his idealism, his suppressed ethical response, as just a personal neurotic issue.
Wait, so they were treating his failure to be true to herself as mental illness.
That's exactly it. An incredible inversion, really. His recovery only started when he realized the cause wasn't some deep-seated complex, but his own suppressed opinions, his stifled conscience.
So he started speaking up.
He did. He decided his integrity, his peace of mind, mattered more than the job. And as he started expressing his real views, the anxiety lessened. He wasn't sick because of hidden drives. He was suffering because his spiritual core, his response to meaning, was being ignored and pathologized.
Okay, this idea of a suppressed spiritual core leads us straight to one of Frankl's major contributions. Expanding the unconscious. Not just the Freudian id, but the spiritual unconscious. That sounds potentially tricky for a scientific approach. How did he integrate that?
It does sound a bit mystical, but Frankl's approach was deeply humanistic yet grounded. He argued that yes, the instinctual drives can be unconscious, like Freud said, but the spiritual dimension, our core self, can also operate unconsciously.
How did he distinguish them?
He made this really crucial distinction. He said the person is spiritual. That's the center, the core, the axis of who you are. But you merely have a psychophysical overlay.
So the body and the psyche, they're like layers around this essential spiritual core.
Exactly. They're peripheral. The spiritual core is what gives us oneness, wholeness. It is the person.
So if this core self is us, but it can be unconscious, how does it, talk to us? How do we access it?
Through conscience. For Frankl, conscience is the spiritual core in action. He described it as having this intuitive quality, almost pre-logical, maybe even irrational sometimes.
Meaning it doesn't always follow neat, rational steps.
Right. It's often instantaneous. It sort of reveals the meaning hidden in a situation before your logical mind has fully chewed it over.
And what's its main job, this intuitive conscience?
Its job isn't to tell you what is the current reality. Its job is to reveal what ought to be. The unique possibility that needs to be made real by you in this specific moment.
That specific, unique possibility. He had a term for that, didn't he?
Yes, the unum necessae, the one thing necessary. It's like an individual law. for that particular moment.
So it's different from a general moral rule like Kant's categorical imperative, always do X. This is more like figuring out the right thing for this unique situation, which might even seem to contradict a general rule sometimes.
Precisely. It's highly personalized, deeply existential. It's about the unique meaning calling to you now, which can't just be deduced from universal laws.
And Frankl believed dreams could be a window into the spiritual unconscious, not just the Freudian basement of instincts.
Oh, definitely. The sources give a couple of really striking examples. Remember the composer?
The one writing popular hits but feeling empty.
That's him. He kept dreaming about a telephone, but with this huge, oversized dial. Now, in German, the word for dialing a phone is wählen.
Which also means to choose.
Exactly. So the giant dial, the wall, symbolized his struggle to choose his authentic path, writing the religious music he felt deeply called to over the successful but ultimately meaningless pop music career. His artistic conscience was speaking through the dream.
That's powerful. And the other example, the church.
Right, a patient who dreamed of being in a church that had been bombed out during the war. Everything was rubble except the altar remained intact, and through the ruined roof, the blue sky was shining through.
So the trauma, the bombing, had shattered her perhaps rigid institutional view of religion.
Yes, the external structure has crumbled. But the dream showed that this very destruction had opened her eyes to the core, the essence, the altar, the connection to the transcendent, the blue heavens, freeing it from maybe narrow dogma.
Okay, so conscience guides us towards the unique meaning, the unum necessi. But you said conscience is the next to last to what of our responsibleness. What's the final to what?
The ultimate to what, according to Frankl, is transcendence, something beyond the immediate situation, beyond even our own conscience.
How does that play out for different people?
Well, he observed that someone who is strictly irreligious might stop at conscience. They see it as an important psychological reality, maybe a product of evolution or society. But they hesitate to look beyond that, beyond the firm ground under their feet.
They stay within the bounds of the observable, the immanent.
Right. Whereas the religious person, Frankl suggests, is willing to acknowledge and relate to that ultimate, to what that lies beyond the purely psychological or material reality.
And this inherent, maybe latent relationship to transcendence that Frankl believed exists in everyone, that's the unconscious God concept.
Yes, exactly. And it's crucial to understand the term. It means God might be unconscious to the person, not that God is somehow unconscious in himself. This inherent, often unrecognized connection is there.
And this links to his idea that you can't just force faith, right?
Absolutely. Faith, hope, love, these core human experiences related to transcendence, they can't be commanded. You can't just will yourself to believe or love.
Like you said earlier, you can't order someone to laugh. You have to tell them a joke. The feeling has to arise naturally from an experience.
Precisely. And because of that, Frankl argued for a profoundly personalized religion if faith is to remain vital. People need to find their own language, their own way to relate to that ultimate reality.
But even while emphasizing this personal spiritual dimension, he was incredibly strict about the role of psychiatry, wasn't he?
Oh, absolutely adamant. He insisted that psychiatry must maintain its scientific integrity. It should remain a scientia naturaliter irreligiosa, a science that is naturally non-religious.
It shouldn't try to become a servant to theology, an ancilla theologia.
Exactly.
Why was that boundary so important to him?
Because blurring those lines, forcing science into the service of religion, or vice versa, ultimately robs both fields of their dignity and their autonomy. Psychiatrists need to know their limits, stay within their scientific expertise, and not dabble in fields other than our own, as he put it. Let science be science, and faith be faith.
Okay, that makes sense. Now let's touch on the practical side. The therapeutic techniques logotherapy developed. De-reflection is one key one.
Yes, de-reflection is designed to counteract something Frankl called hyperreflection.
Which is like being too self-conscious, overthinking.
Exactly. Over-attentiveness to yourself, to your own performance or feelings. The classic example is the skilled violinist who suddenly starts consciously thinking about how they move their fingers, how they hold the bow.
And they just freeze up, lose the music.
Completely. They suffer an artistic breakdown. De-reflection works by shifting the focus away from the self and back towards the external meaning, trusting that unconscious spiritual core to handle the performance spontaneously.
So stop worrying about how you're playing and just focus on the music itself, the meaning you're trying to express.
You got it. Redirect the attention outward. And the second major technique, maybe his most famous, is paradoxical intention.
Right. This is the one for breaking anxiety cycles. Like, Anticipatory anxiety.
Precisely that feedback loop. Say someone fears blushing in public. The fear makes them blush, which confirms the fear, which makes it worse next time.
A vicious cycle.
Totally. Paradoxical intention breaks it by using humor and detachment. The therapist encourages the patient to actually try to do the thing they fear, often exaggerating it humorously.
So the blushing person would be told to try and blush even more. Show everyone the reddest face they've ever seen.
Exactly. Or someone afraid of trembling might be encouraged to show them how shaky you can really get. By intentionally, even humorously, willing the symptom, the patient regains a sense of control and distance from the fear. The anticipatory anxiety loop is short-circuited.
And the sources say this actually works.
Yeah, studies show it's remarkably effective and often quite fast-acting, especially for things like phobias and obsessive-compulsive patterns. It mobilizes that uniquely human capacity for self-detachment and humor.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, it really comes back to that core message Frankl brought back from the absolute depths. Life retains meaning, unconditionally, even in the face of unimaginable suffering.
It does. And for you, the listener, Frankl distilled the ways we can find this meaning into what he called the axiological trichotomy. 3 main avenues.
What are they?
First, creative values. Finding meaning through doing something, creating something, contributing a deed or a work to the world.
Like building something, writing something, helping someone.
Right. Second, experiential values. Finding meaning through experiencing something or encountering someone. This could be appreciating beauty in nature or art, or crucially through loving another person.
Experiencing the good, the true, the beautiful.
Yes. And the third, the one perhaps most profoundly shaped by his own experiences, attitudinal values.
This is the tough one, finding meaning in suffering itself.
Finding meaning in the attitude you take toward unavoidable suffering. When you face a fate you cannot change, like a terminal illness, or, in his case, the camps, you still have the freedom to choose how you face it.
That's where the meaning lies, in the choice of attitude.
Exactly. By choosing dignity, courage, compassion, even humor in the face of suffering, you transform that suffering from a mere tragedy into a human achievement. It turns that tragic triad, as he called it, pain, guilt, and death, into an opportunity.
He saw that those who survived the camps often had that future orientation, didn't they? Something they still needed to do, someone they needed to see.
Yes, they were oriented towards a meaning waiting to be fulfilled. Frankl felt logotherapy offered a kind of real realism, acknowledging the depth of human suffering, but also fiercely believing in the heights of human potential.
Which brings us perfectly to our final thought for you, something to really chew on. It's a quote from Goethe that Frankl loved, and it sums up this whole perspective.
If I take man as he is, I make him worse. If I take him as he ought to be, I make him become what he can be.
Think about that. Seeing the potential, the ought, actually helps bring it into being.
That wisdom, Frankl's translation of it into, psychological terms, it challenges you, the listener, to see every situation life throws at you not just as a burden, but as a chance. A challenge, an opportunity to find and fulfill its unique meaning through your responsible choices, your actions.
It's about listening to that inner wisdom and acting on it. Thank you for diving deep with us today.